What's up guys, I'm Nathan and in this video we're finally here with the updated anime adventures tier list. I already did one for this update, but you guys know I did miss a couple of characters, and so I'm finally here with the one where I get all the missed characters. So we'll start off with the new ones so that you just know where they are and why they are in their places. Lelouch or Lulu, he just has his own tier. He's a secret character and his evolution is also pretty expensive. He's just really difficult to get. But there's no guarantee that you'll get him, but if you do, that's a guaranteed leaderboard for you. Basically what he does, he summons these Britannian soldiers, which literally have an AI that is pretty good, and they actually shoot the enemies before running into them. Those Britannian soldiers alone probably are about as good as the average mythic. Literally just the summons, and that comes every around 5 seconds. On top of that, he summons a mech every now and then. There can only be one in the map at a time, but but it has a ridiculous amount of HP and does AoE damage, which is probably better than quite most of the mythicals. It's that itself, the mech itself would be S tier. At the moment the mech dies because it moves slowly, you'll just get another mech. And you know what, if that wasn't broken enough, on top of that he has this ability that kind of turns around the enemies and just makes them literally attack other enemies, which I don't really have to say more. It's quite clear, and I literally don't even have the image of him because he's just so rare. Barely anyone has him. Anyway guys, next is Katakuri. So don't get mad at me guys, but I am putting him in A tier. I forgot. S tier is going to be for the meta units only and alternatives for meta. The A tier is going to be very good units. B tier is going to be the decent units. C tier is going to be about average and D tier is below average. So and that's actually because I've made the ranking a bit stricter because you guys voted for it in the comments. So you're gonna see a few characters in a lower tier than they would have been before. Future Gohan is a leaderboard unit. He's actually not a bad one. He does like over 1,000 damage, which is pretty decent. So I'll give him a solid A tier. By the way, the reason that Katakuri is in A tier only is because, first of all, you can't place, I think you can only place one of him down. Second of all, he costs an insane amount of cash. And third of all, you might say he slows, he's meta. But the thing is, the slowness literally does not last for long. It's the same as Todoroki. The only thing that makes him better than Todoroki is the fact that he does more damage, but it just costs so much. So overall, it's just not really worth to get this mythical and evolve him. But of course, he's potentially decent. Like I said, because of the slow, because he can reapply the slow. I mean, if you don't have All Might, like All Might and Whitebeard and stuff, they're pushing the enemies back, which is better than just simply slowing them down. But I mean, it's still, I guess, not a bad character. Mihawk is gonna be like top B tier. His damage isn't the best. However, he actually does have quite a lot of range, so not bad for beginners. Ace is gonna be right there. He's a secret character, but like it's just not really worth to get him. He doesn't really do much. I would even say Mihawk is better just because of his range. Luffy, this one's a pretty cheap character. Gonna be in C tier. Not bad. Does like over 100 damage. Eren is gonna be probably like B tier. He's a summoner that can even summon the attack titan, which actually attacks the enemies before running into them. But it's just not really that OP. And honestly, I would say even Mihawk is better just because it's better range. And summoners essentially are only hitting one unit at a time, unless you were talking about Lelouch. Then we have Genos, that's gonna be in C tier. He does have a fast SPA. Sanji is gonna be a solid top C tier. Because he's a very good starter. He only costs 250 cash. He burns. He's definitely a really good character to get to start off with. Piccolo is going to be right there in C tier. Not really that great, but he does have good range. Then we have Levi, who's going to be right there in A tier. A decent mythical. He has really amazing DPS, especially when you evolve him. He bleeds. But the problem is going to be on the size of his AoE circle, which is why I would even put him below Gohan. Then we have Speedwagon. That's gonna be an S tier. Bulma is better than Speedwagon, but Speedwagon is still better on story mode because you can place 3 of them down, which just makes upgrading him a lot faster. Akainu is gonna be a solid S tier. He has one of the best range in the game, and he also has the ability to burn for a decent amount of damage and a pretty good circle AoE. Crocodile is actually a really good epic. I'm gonna go ahead and put him in like bottom B tier. He's actually one of the best epics in my opinion. Zenitsu is gonna be like D tier. It's just not really worth to use him. He's not good at anything. Gaara is also going to be bottom B tier because he actually has the ability to stun enemies, which is pretty decent. Trafalgar Law is another pretty damn good epic. I'm gonna say solid top C tier. He does a lot of damage, but the only problem will be that he's, I think, single target. That's the main problem with him. Then we have this guy, Erwin. He's gonna be a solid S tier. He's the buffer unit, and he basically is going to buff your characters by around 25% damage, which is of course really helpful. Whitebeard is another solid S tier. He does good damage, he's got full AoE, and he can knock back enemies with a skill, kind of like All Might, but All Might just automatically does it. Then we have Blackbeard, pretty good. I would say right next to Erwin, kind of equal. Basically what he does is he curses the enemies, and that makes them take more damage, but I think that's RNG based, which is why I'll say Erwin is probably better, but both of them are really good legendaries. Goku Black is just not really a good legendary. I'll put him like mid to low B tier. He's just not that good. Sakura I'll put bottom A tier because she actually buffs your units by 10%, and for a rare that's not bad, plus it stacks with Erwin, which is pretty nice. Giorno is gonna be an A tier. He's a good starter unit. Like in story mode he's just pretty decent. Like even Mihawk is another good one, but since Giorno has a circle AoE, it's just easier for him to hit because Mihawk's like rectangle AoE is very narrow. Goku is going to be right next to Giorno. They are equal because Giorno is way better for story mode, but Goku is actually one of the best damaging legendaries for infinite mode, just because he does quite a lot of damage compared to other legendaries. Josuke is going to be like a top C tier because he does stun enemies, which is pretty decent, but it's single target, which is not that good. All Might is definitely going to be right there in S tier, probably above Whitebeard because he does automatically do it, but both of them are very usable in the meta. All Might basically automatically pushes the enemies back. Frieza is going to be another solid C tier. He does pretty good damage with decent range. Then we have Todoroki, who's going to be bottom A tier because he actually also slows down enemies just like Katakuri. It's just that he is way cheaper and also does way lesser damage. Then we have Broly, who is one of the best mythicals just because he does a good damage per second, but he's got massive range like 47 or so and full AoE, which is just really helpful. Then we have Killua, who's going to be like mid to low C tier. Then we have Madara, who's going to be tied with Akainu. They're equal. I'm not saying one is better than the other, they're both equal. Basically they both just deal a pretty good damage per second. It's just that they're two sides of the same coin. You have Akainu that just has way more range, and Madara that has better AoE and a little bit more DPS. So maybe I would say Madara is slightly better. Then we have Bulma, who's also going to be an S tier because she just gives way more money than Speedwagon, which is definitely helpful on infinite mode. Kakyoin is a pretty bad epic. I mean, he does have big AoE, but he barely does damage and there's just nothing good about him. I would say it's still better than Zenitsu, however. Then we have Shanks, who's going to be a very solid S tier. He has the highest DPS in the game with full AoE, but the only thing is going to be that his AoE is kind of small. But he also, if that wasn't enough, he also will actually have a time stop kind of ability where he uses his haki. Then we have Luffy, who's going to be like a pretty solid D tier, because yes, he might be bad, but he's a good starter because he just does a good amount of damage, but he's only single target. We have Overhaul, who's going to be low C tier because he starts off with a very fast SPA and he does end up with a decent amount of damage and AoE. Kizary is, well, not the best legendary. I'm gonna have to put him right here in B tier. Diavolo is going to be bottom S tier because he is potentially usable as a support. He has an ability that can actually time stop the entire map. Well, not really time stop, he can kind of slow down the entire map. You know what? On a second thought, I'll go ahead and put him in A tier along with Katakuri because on revision, I mean, they're pretty similar characters. Then we have Rengoku, who burns and is a pretty damn good character, but definitely not meta because he has a lot of competition coming from the other really good damage per second units. Then we have Dio, who's going to be a pretty solid S tier. Basically, he automatically time stops enemies, which is just really good. You don't really have to bother about manually doing it. He's really good on story mode because he's also quite cheap. So yeah, overall the best legendary that you can currently get. We have Armin, who's going to be top B tier. He's the worst mythic in the game. But I mean, he does have a massive AoE on his ability. It's just it has such a long cooldown. It's just not usable. But I mean, he does, technically speaking, have more DPS than the legendaries that are located below him. So then we have Kakashi, who is going to be probably in D tier just because he's so expensive and does not do enough damage to warrant that kind of cost. Then we have Pain, who's honestly quite a good character. I'm gonna go ahead and put him like pretty high up in A tier just because he also knocks back enemies like All Might evolved. So if you can't really afford the evolved version of All Might, Pain is a really good alternative. It's just that he does lesser damage. Then we have Jotaro, who is also going to be kind of along with Pain right there in A tier. He is able to manually time stop the enemies, which can be helpful for grouping the enemies if at all it's necessary. Like if a certain character comes that does insane damage with a small AoE, Jotaro will actually go into S tier, probably even above Dio, because Dio just does his own thing, but with Jotaro you can actually kind of control what you're doing, control how you're time stopping the enemies. But as of now, most of the meta characters just have insane AoE, so it's not that necessary. Like Lelouch is a summoner that's anyway going to hit all the enemies that he can, regardless of whether or not you time stop. And Broly is like full AoE, so is Shanks. So yeah, in that sense, that grouping currently isn't that necessary. Then we lastly have Itachi, who is going to be a pretty decent B tier. He's a hill unit, which isn't useful because there are no air enemies. He does decent damage, but with a kind of small AoE, and it's not burst damage because he also deals like this Amaterasu burn. But that is pretty much it for this tier list. So thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know what you guys want to see next, and I will catch you guys in the next video. See ya.